In a short stretch of time from the mid-90s to the early 2000s, a relatively small group of people started playing around with this thing called the World Wide Web. They had the audacity to think they just might change the world. This project introduces you to the OG players from those hallowed days and lets them tell you what it was like and how you should have been there. Episode 16. Today we're talking with Troy, Kelley, and Mark Cibort. They are a dynamic duo. Ritesh and I worked with them back in the day, and they have made their mark over the years, haven't they?
Like every other ACOM alumni that I stay in touch with, but these two guys, I tell you,
I know
because if you remember them back in the day, you would have never in the entire world would have said this gonna do what they did. So
no, exactly. It was more like who let them into the building, right?
Exactly.
And I think we brought them in, as I recall, we brought them in to be the adult supervision for the rest of us.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. So, I remember that. And I think there was another who was Marcos, I think. We'll ask them when we get on. We'll make sure we get those cobwebs dusted off.
That's good. Hey, before we get started, I gave myself a haircut. I'm not saying I'm proud, but dang, it's not bad.
It's not bad for somebody who's a hack. I love it.
You can't see the back of it. Yeah, yours looks pretty good. I would say we look nearly professional.
I know. Terrible, right?
All right,
it's another Friday. Here we go.
These guys have too many stories to tell, so we'll get some business out of the way here. So if you're watching, check out youshoulda.com. That's where you can see past episodes, you can see upcoming guests, you can get audio podcasts, you can get transcripts. At some point we'll sell T-shirts, but youshoulda.com's got all of your web history loving moments. If you are in the audience and you've got something to say to these gentlemen, feel free to heckle. Ritesh is always looking for those comments, and we'll bring up the good and juicy ones. So please feel free to do that. And then finally, Ritesh and I fancy ourselves influencers, but we need subscribers for that to be true. So please go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. It'll make a big difference. We can get a vanity URL very shortly. Very excited about that.
We're very close. Very close.
So with that, I think, what do you think? I
think we need to bring the two reprobates over.
Gentlemen on. Well, gentlemen.
Well, look at you.
Hello.
Troy, Kelley, Mark Cibort, the world famous. Or Sparky, as he was very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Lovingly known as Sparky.
Yes.
How are you guys doing?
Still a name I carry right now.
Do you?
Yep.
Awesome.
All right, so we're all over the world right now.
Yeah.
The world, right? We've got
where are you?
Kyle in Denver.
Yeah.
Ritesh, Mark in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Me in LA.
You're in Hollywood.
It's like the new economy, you know?
I know. Hey, what's that behind you, Troy? What's the sticky note thing behind you? Is that like ideas or things you want to get done over the weekend?
Let Ogilvy know that Ritesh is referring to a Kanban board and he didn't know what it was. Okay, Mr. Technology, Mr. Head Tech guy.
Well, I got to tell you, my Kanban board is a thing called Trello that I use on a computer. The internet's going to be big one day, Troy. Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, listen, I know your fans know who you are, but why don't you each give a quick little intro of sort of who you are and what you do now, and then we'll sort of dive in and go in the Wayback Machine.
Troy.
Oh, okay. Hey, so, I am glad to say I can't introduce myself without referencing Mark.
No, wait,
but, he and I were on this journey together. That's why I'm glad I was able to do this with him. I mean, literally to have a friend who you could take to 3 different agencies who gets you a job every time you lose your job, right?
That's not bad.
Who moves out to California and then you even follow him out there. I mean, I'm like, a barnacle. I'm like the thing that wouldn't leave,
That's good.
But, I'm lucky enough to have grown up and been at, I think, 3 of the best agencies that ever did what we do in this business. And we'll talk more about that. I came out here to work at Deutsch, had a great couple of years there. And now I'm working with a place called Chapeau Studios, where we are doing virtual production using Epic Games Unreal Engine. So I'm about as deep in the forward-thinking technology as I was when we were at agency.com right now.
Nice.
So that's fun.
Sweet.
And where are you living, Troy? Where are you living?
We're on a hill called Palos Verdes.
Okay.
It's like the Rock, you know. It's
Nice.
like you come up here and then you don't leave, you know.
Nice.
South LA.
Nice. And Mark, how about you? What are you up to these days?
So I am with a company called Reactor, a Finnish company, and it's a technology consulting creative agency focusing on custom software development. So it's in the same vein of what we did at agency.com, then going on to RGA and other places, making very useful things. And that's what I really enjoy doing, working with a great group of people all around the world. And it's been a year since I've joined Reactor. So weird to join a company remotely, fully remote. There's still people I haven't met, but I've loved it so far. It's been great. And,
wow.
you know, as Troy mentioned, that tour of duty that we've done together as far as great agencies in New York and then moving out to the West Coast and being able to continue that personal and professional collaboration with Troy has been really rewarding. You know, I think the fact that the two of us having our relationship has never been competitive. It's been very collaborative and cooperative, helping each other through challenging situations in a way that I think without having him in that kind of a partnership would have been super difficult for some of the stuff that I had to go through. So, you know, I'm really happy. And, you know, being able to raise our families together in the same places at the same time was also quite cool.
Yeah, that's
no, I worry about the children though.
That's great. Well, listen, I mean, it's like what's cool is like you guys have like, you know, you're rock stars, but you know, every rock star started out as a crappy musician in a garage somewhere. So let's go back to the crappy musician stage, shall we? And you know, what we like to do here is start at the beginning.
Yeah.
So you know, how did it start with agency.com? And I don't care who goes first, but
how did you find us?
Yeah,
so let me jump in, Mark, if you don't mind. So
sure, no, go ahead.
I love a good story. It basically, it was always amazing to me that I work in a field that didn't exist when I was in college.
Yeah.
Right. So like, how did this even happen? Right. So I come out of college. I'm a history major. I got this artistic side. I love to write and I love to make short films. And I'm working as a tech guy on Wall Street at Merrill Lynch. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like doing client server software installs and I'm sleeping in the bathroom and I'm going out drinking every night. And I got a young wife who's like, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? And, you know, we'd get the AOL discs. I put it in with my 14.4 dial-up. But the one day that a guy came and plugged a T1 line into my computer and said, you got to see what the internet's really all about. I stayed online 12 in the afternoon until midnight, shot home on the last ferry from World Financial Center from Merrill Lynch. My wife was sitting there waiting for me. She's like, where have you been? Like, she just figured I was out on a binge somewhere. And I'm like, honey, I finally know what I'm going to do.
Wow.
I'm going to just make content on the internet. And I went and bought my HTML1 book. So this is like 96. I had just turned 30. So I'm like, I'm going to go. Now, second part of the story is that I can thank my entire career, everything that I've done, I can thank Lainey Fast. Because she was the person, she was in a beach house with a friend of mine at the Jersey Shore. You like websites. She works at this company, agency.com. Gave her my resume. By the next week, I had an interview. By the next day, I had an offer. They're like, you seemed like an adult, and we needed some adults to run the BA team. And so that's how it all started.
Operative words there. Seemed like,
yeah. Well, you know, when you're being interviewed by the 20-year-old to come and work, you know, you're obviously, whoa, that guy's old. We should bring him in.
I can't wait to hear all the career direction I'm going to get from a kid who's 6 years younger than me.
There you go.
Mark, how about you? How did it all begin for you? Did you have a similar epiphany about the internet?
It was probably a little bit more gradual. I don't think it happened over a 12-hour period of being locked into a T1 line. But that same kind of feeling, it was really understanding the intersection between marketing and technology when I got to Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And this would have been in '94. We were doing database marketing, and the VP of marketing stopped by my desk one day and was like, hey, there's this thing called the internet. I'd like you to look into it. And it just went from there, getting to work with an agency. Back then, I think it was True North Interactive. Mm-hmm. But we got to do stuff that nobody was doing at the time because I don't think anyone really understood exactly what we were talking about. So we pitched the idea of taking the printed provider directory, the doctor book for Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Well, we could put that online. You could make it searchable. There's this thing called MapQuest where we could actually pinpoint the address and somebody could find all of it and never call a soul, and we could stop printing these books. And they were like, that sounds crazy, but sure, why not? So this was '95, and I think we had the first online provider directory of any healthcare company in the United States, maybe even the world. And it just went from there. Leaving there, going to Oppenheimer Funds. That's how I got to agency.com. It was Dotan Segui, who was the project manager for the work that was being done with Oppenheimer. Right. And he said, it would be great to have somebody with business pedigree at agency.com. Would you want to come over here? And I'm like, you're going to poach me from the client? He's like, no, it's not poaching. Don't worry about that.
We need an adult. Yeah, we need somebody who knows what they're doing to come over. Yeah,
it was that same approach, and Paul he seemed a little risk averse, and I can't remember Paul's last name, but the gentleman who wore the boleros all the time.
I was going to say Chris Stetson.
Stetson used to as well.
Yeah,
but
no, he looked like a Marine, like he was really military looking. Paul. And I'm drawing a blank on his last name. That's so terrible. But he was the one who was like, yes, we'll bring you in and we'll deal with any fallout from Oppenheimer. So
Wow.
I came in and started working on Compact with Hamong and Deanne and John Glazer, HT.
Deanne Gray. Wow.
It was
his name.
Yeah. So it went from there.
So hold on, guys. We've got two things we have to do. So first of all, Tim Ayers wants to know who has better hair. I would say... Definitely Troy.
No,
I don't know.
No, his hair's thicker than mine. Look at that.
All right. Okay.
I think Mark has more hair product.
Okay.
Perhaps.
I've discovered product recently, so it's good. And
Daisy.
Then Daisy's on. Hi, Daisy.
Daisy. Oh my God.
So there we go.
This is awesome. So now it sounds like Troy, you were brought in on BA. Mark, you started on Compact. When did you guys discover each other? Like, when did the bromance begin?
I would say it was shortly after Troy joined, because I remember Lainey introducing me to Troy and to Richie Whalen. On the fourth floor at 665.
Yeah.
We were a great group. I mean, that project management group. So we did a lot of those. We did a lot of meetings, probably once a week. We'd all get together. So you had, I think me and Mark caught each other one day, realized that we lived one town from each other, realized that people from Pensy, where all of my relatives are from. So we had a lot to talk about, and we immediately bonded. But, Whalen went to high school with my cousins. We had Lainey, Heather, we had Daisy, and then you had Eric Poros, Bill Bloom. I mean, this is a cast.
Dina Giuliano,
of
Project.
Of course, Dina, Megan Coleman. This became a tight group. We were our own peeps. Like, we went everywhere together.
Wow. Marcos Mandel. Marcos was part of that group, right?
Yeah,
he was there at the beginning. I think we were more latter day.
He was in the beginning. That's right.
Yeah, Marcos was there.
It was IPO through the last layoff. I think that's 99 through 2001 is the sweet spot of our time.
Is that when when did you start at agency? Was it 99?
I started at the end of 98.
98.
Yeah. I started the middle of 98.
Yeah.
So I was 30. I had just turned 30. I remember when I started there.
Well, that was the internet at that time, it was full on crazy at that point. This, like you joined at the time when, kids out of college were like, I want 150 grand, and they were getting it. Like it was just, it was insanity.
We had people, I remember one guy coming in, Java developer, had just, learned it all and graduated with some degree from Stevens Tech or something. And he wanted $175,000. He wanted 30,000 share options and a car. And Mitch Gordon looked at me and said, is this guy serious?
Yeah,
what was the initiative? 60 and 60 or whatever?
30 in 30 days.
30 and 30. So 30 and 30. My best story is I interviewed a person who hadn't even graduated college, who had a 6-page resume, right? And a guy who interviewed to be the creative director of the BAUS team, like up there with Tori Wynn, that same level, James Plath, that same level. And he was a mime. He was like on the side? No, that's what I do. I'm a mime.
Careful, buddy.
I work in an office. No, I'm in Central Park. I'm a mime. Right.
I love it. I love it. But he's creative, Troy. He was creative.
Of course. I remember Kyle saying, we just hired, who was it? Some high executive we hired who ran roller coasters, who built roller coasters.
Oh, Tim. That was Tim, right? The interactive TV guy.
And like to us, we're like, that's great. That's going to be awesome. What the hell do I know if this guy knows anything?
Yeah. And what was at 99? Were we at 20 Exchange at that point?
No, these guys we were all at 365, and then we moved to 20 Exchange. But because I remember having to walk past Heather, because my office was next to Heather's.
Yep.
So Heather had the corner, I had the one next to it, and then you had to go around the corner, past Barbara, who was Aaron Sugarman's assistant,
right.
Down to the pit.
That's right. That's right.
So that's it. So we talk about the peak and the nadir, right? So that was the peak, 99.
Yeah,
I will never forget. So the BA team all sat, not in the pit. We sat across from the pit in this whole area.
Yep.
And one day, Howard Stern walked through.
I remember that.
Sirius was a client, but this is way before that. He just came in to talk to you guys about how he did HowardStern.com.
Yeah, no.
And he walked right through our space, and we were like, wow.
Yeah.
How cool is this?
Yeah, crazy. No, I was the one that ended up talking to him. So I talked to him and his manager, and, he was like, what's this internet thing about? He was asking me about that. And then at one point I said, what you should do is you should take clips from your show and just put them on the internet. And this was pre-YouTube, but like basically you just put them on your website. And he was like, you mean give it away? I'm like, yeah, just, and he was like, absolutely. And now you look at, all of the clips on
now, right?
You're like, but yeah.
By the way, boys, Richie Whalen says, don't tell any more stories, Troy.
Yeah, nice.
I guess I shouldn't sing my song that he taught me about himself.
I know. I think we now owe it to Rich Whalen to sing that song. I think we have to do it.
So talk about what it was like, working there. Like, what was the environment like at 665, and how did that shift? But like, what was it like working in those early days?
Yeah, being at 665 at the very beginning was the energy was kind of insane. And as a very quick side story, that's how I got my nickname, because we were all on the 4th floor at 665, and Nick Cook, who had just joined the Compact team, happened to sit all the way at the opposite end of the floor and was trying to get my attention, and he was yelling out, Marcus. Random words, and then I heard someone say Sparky, and I turned and looked, and he was like, that's it, you're Sparky. And I was like, Jesus, thanks for not saying something like D-bag. And I looked, but that's how it stuck. That's how I became Sparky. And that was kind of the dynamic there at 665. It was just crazy energy that you kept going to get everything done.
Yeah.
And then we were one of the first crews to go down to 20 Exchange.
That's right.
That's right.
With George, right? George.
Yeah. My gosh. It was Leah, George, Jenny, Mia, Lainey, Daisy, Heather, Joel. Like we took one part of one of the floors before any of the demo, before any of the renovation happened.
That's right.
Jackson, Ian, Chris Ballmer, like there were, like all of these people were there, and the energy there was more concentrated because it was just the compact team. I think this might have been pre-Team Tiger Style before the name was,
it was.
Yeah,
it was.
assigned.
Yeah, because we assigned those teams when we moved down there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we had to figure out a different way to do teams at 20 Exchange.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it being at 665 and in that area was different because you didn't really stand out. Like it was, you looked normal because NYU was right around the corner. The minute we got down to Wall Street and you're walking to work in flip-flops and shorts, somebody just assumes that you're like the delivery guy. Like, do you have my coffee? And I'm like, no, I work here. What the hell's wrong with you? So it was a healthy dose of like, oh, okay, like this is reality. What we're doing may not be completely real, but we're going to do it. Like, this is amazing. So it was just such a fantastic time with really great people who, I'm so happy to have had a chance to get to know them and still be friends with them. Even if we don't see each other all the time, you just pick up where you left off, and it's really special.
What about you, Troy? What did you? Some of the things that you were sort of.
Come on! I came from Wall Street to where it looked like I was in a lipstick factory. That's what my friends used to tell me. Like I was in this artsy space, Broadway and Bond, right there, with like a snowboard store next door. It was like. Yeah.
What was the bar next to the snowboard place that we used to go?
Well, we called it Stinky Bar.
Stinky Bar.
I don't know what it was, but it did stink. They've since turned it into like an alfalfa grass place or something like that.
So sorry, Troy, I cut you off. Keep going.
No, it's okay, Ritesh. But I do remember some of the things. My last memory of 665 was the IPO. So the IPO, when suddenly you guys put out T-shirts, and we had champagne, and we had a party like at the upper part, like right where the steps were, right there. And then we all started moving within like a month or two after that, right?
Wow.
But the cool thing about it, because I always compare it to what agency life was like afterwards, what we had to live with. So we had ICQ was like Slack is today.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? It's like we were so
and AOL. Remember, we used to use AOL IM everywhere.
Yeah.
It was
crazy.
Everywhere.
ICQ was like that. We were logging hours in Elite, which basically, if you look at modern agencies, everything's FTE. Nobody's advanced. RGA and a few digital agencies have the ability to look at utilization and hours to a very high level, but we were doing it in 98. It's like crazy how we were so aware of, how our business ran, yet we had a bunch of mimes running around. It was like the two different extremes at the same time, Yeah.
We had some crazy background people joining us. We had musicians, we had architects, people. I think there was somebody who was an architect who then became a UX/IA person, right? It's the same thing, right? Really, is it? It was fascinating. Mark, you're nodding away there.
Yeah, it was just so funny, the people's background and how they were able to contribute or transform once they got there. There were people who might have been either miscast in their roles coming in and found the right role, the right path, or people that just came up through. I remember the first time I met Joe Jaffe, he worked in the mailroom.
Oh, right.
And he was like freaking MacGyver. He could figure out anything to get anything done.
Right.
And you're like, Jaffe, can you help with this? I got it.
Yeah.
And he never wanted to ask how.
Yeah. How? Yeah.
It was like, I don't want to know. But it always done. Like it was there. And just amazing.
But I think that was the other thing. That whole can do. If you remember, my favorite story of all time is Folkert and Jason and Flash. And we were like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, right.
And they were like, oh, we'll go figure it out. And they came back and they did something. We were like, whoa, how did that happen? Yeah. But we always had this, we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. We don't know how. I
had Elliot Polanco behind me.
Elliot
Polanco.
Oh, my gosh.
Whatever you wanted done in the world,
yes.
Elliot Polanco was going to find a way to program and get it done. And where's he working right now? He's running his own thing with, all kinds of crazy AI and everything else.
Really?
So he was far ahead then, and he never stepped back. He's still that far ahead.
Is this a name you remember?
Peter Taverner. Yes. I freelanced before I showed up, and Peter's one of my best buds. He's out in Michigan right now.
Oh, that's so cool.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody.
We'll send the check to Troy's house for you to go pick up.
Oh my God.
You know,
yeah, Elliot Blanco, you had people like, so the two extremes, you had the Tory Wynn, who broke out in the middle of the Bear global pitch, broke out a Chutes and Ladders board and started playing a huge physical game of Chutes and Ladders. The clients were just so amazed by the way she thought. And Elliot Polanco, who, I mean, we migrated the whole executive club database online, and it only took him like 3 hours to figure out how he was going to move this massive data set over. So
how did you know what he said? He was so soft-spoken. Half the time I used to have to say, can you say that again? I didn't hear you, Elliot.
He sat that close to me, Ritesh, at 6'6". That's how I was able to do it.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
That's just crazy.
You know what, Carl? This could go for 3 hours. You know that, right?
I know. It's like we haven't even begun to unwrap it. Well, that's so let's do that. Let's talk about talk about the projects you worked on. Like what was something you worked on that broke new ground, or you felt like, holy shit, like, we get to do this thing. What were some of the things you worked on that you felt changed the game in some way?
The first project that I was assigned to with Compaq, it started out as a redesign for a certain part of Compaq's website. And they loved the work so much that it started to expand to the point where they had just acquired DEC. They had acquired, I think Tandem might have been another company.
Tandem.
That they had.
No, it was Tandem. Yeah, Tandem.
What?
Yep.
And it was, okay, now roll all this stuff together and figure out how we can present it under one brand umbrella. So having Deanne, having John Glazer, I think that was when HT started to move out from a project management role into something that was more of a creative role, how closely he worked with John. But being able to push that work into what was really the first wave of e-commerce style work, because you had to be able to configure your machine. You had to be able to get it to a point where you could then order it from somewhere to have it shipped to that place to be picked up. So advanced and so ahead of the game. And just the team and the energy, the people that were able to work on it. I mean, it's no wonder that Jenny and John wound up getting married, because they worked together so closely. But it was just like that kind of, you had that much passion and that much focus on something that was groundbreaking. And it was really exciting.
Wow. It reminds me, that was a phase of the business where our work definitely shifted from we're building websites to we were doing, full on business consulting, right? How do you integrate these brands? How do you represent them and take different product offerings and different positionings? So we were solving a lot of the brand positioning stuff and business strategy as much as we were solving how does it fit in a chunk of HTML.
But I would say, if you looked at those two clients, I would say Compaq and BA.
Yeah,
we did stuff that even today people go, you did what?
Yeah.
How'd you do that? Right. I mean, what John Glazer designed as the design system for Compaq, for the brand, you can hold it up today to somebody and go, wow, that's amazing. Right. Today.
Yeah. And being an adult when I got there, like, I didn't understand a lot of it's like, we're not just creating content here. Like, we were migrating the entire executive club and the venture club databases.
Yeah,
right.
Online access, building the interface. I remember Ralph Seaman and I sitting on endless calls for the booking engine. We built
booking engine. Oh my God.
Booking engine in travel, guys.
Ever.
You know how huge that was?
Yeah.
So, I mean, granted, IBM's on the call too, and I'm sure they had a little to do with it. But I remember me and Ralph being on those calls, both sides of the Atlantic. But I will throw one thing out because that stuff I love, because I felt like we were doing real business, not just play and creating content like most agencies do. Anyway, but the one thing that I will say is, Eric Poros did what I thought was probably the most innovative thing I saw at the time. You couldn't get video to stream online back in those days, right?
Well, you could. It was one frame at a time.
But there were real networks. Everything had to be streamed through, the Real Networks engine.
Real Network player. There was Pointcast. Remember Pointcast?
Yeah.
When they came out, right? Yeah.
But Eric did a live streaming event. I think it was actually really big. I think it was like a Michael Jackson or something.
It was Michael Jackson.
Ah.
It was Michael Jackson.
I'm like, dude, you're doing a streaming live event with Michael like, that's the most unbelievable thing I've ever heard about. Like, I couldn't even believe he could pull it off. So credit to him. My time, that was the coolest thing I saw anybody do at agency.com.
Wow. Shortly before you got there, we did we talked about this in one of the earlier episodes, but we did in quote marks a live stream of them putting a half-size model of the Concorde in Times Square. And it was like a frame or two a second over a dial-up modem, but with webcams. But yeah, that
was the Paul Galley one, right?
Exactly. That was
Paul
Galley episode.
That was Paul Galley, where they're literally running a wire up the side of a building and putting a camera up, and Paul's like, I have no idea how I'm going to do that.
And just really quick, you brought up Paul Galley. So what was the innovation group called?
It was the innovation group.
Innovation Lab, right? And Paul ran it.
Innovation Lab.
I remember they plucked Dan Sellers.
Yeah.
They plucked Elliot off my team.
Yeah.
And the mere fact that we had a group of people, and the first thing Elliot ever showed me was a WAP site that they built for my handspring visor.
Yep, I remember that.
And I just was blown away. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to take this mobile. This is amazing. There was no such thing as a smartphone for another 15 years.
Yeah.
These guys are building websites.
Yeah.
So.
Remember what HT did with the San Antonio project, where he connected it to the Palm? Then he had a voice interface where you can dial a number and you can hear the same thing. And then Folkert had the flash thing going. It was amazing. Absolutely incredible. That was 1999.
Yeah. And that was also, interactive TV felt like it was going to be a big thing, and mobile. And so that group was like trying to figure out, like, as the internet was escaping these these desktop machines, where was it going to go? So we were developing content for all those different streams, most of which, died on the vine, but yeah, we were doing a lot of that early work. That was.
But you're right. It was Dan Sellers. It was HT. It was Elliot. It was Jamil. It was Chris Betson. Right? They were doing some crazy stuff in the evenings and weekends as well, which was amazing. We got 2 hellos. One from Judith Curry. Who knows
Judith?
All right. There we go. And
hey, what's up, Matt?
Matt
Zucker is another Ogilvy and ACOM guy. He took the same boat that we took.
Yeah, I think he might have been in the different order, because it was Ogilvy, RGA, and then he went to agency.com.
Ah, okay.
Well, I'll tell you a weird time machine thing was I went back and I got offered a job at agency.com in 2007.
Oh, wow.
Way later, Joe Eldridge was running the office, and Emma Armstrong was there.
Oh, wow.
Katie Daggett was the only person from the old crew still working there, and obviously Emma's still working there from the UK. And what was the funniest thing? Do you remember when we moved to 20 Exchange and we got that big, awesome furniture?
Yep.
And we got those balls.
You sit on.
You would sit on those balls.
Yeah, the eggs.
$1,000. That was like a big, expenditure, whatever. So I'm walking around at the interview and I'm talking to these folks, and the furniture looks like you moved into you took your mom's furniture and put it in your kid room. I'm like, this furniture doesn't fit. You guys don't even know what this is to be. And I said, where are the balls? They're like, what, those things you sit on? We threw all those away. Nobody knew what to do with them. I'm like, bro, that was $1,000 a ball. You got rid of those things? It was like a sad journey back to your high school to walk around.
Oh no!
Yeah, no. Yeah, it was when the .com bubble burst and we had to lay everyone off. It was like all the fun, all the innovation had to get cut out of the company. That was essentially why I left. So all the balls went, the big wacky chairs.
Wasn't there a Zen garden or some sort of Zen area that was up there? I remember we used to do our project manager meetings, where that little moment in time where I ran project management and tech.
Oh, right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
It's we used to have our little meetings up in that Zen area, I think, right?
Just crazy.
Who else was there? Gosh, there was somebody else who worked on the BA account. It was PM. With Ben
Pete
Jones.
Hollicher.
Huh?
Pete Hollicher?
Pete. That's it.
Just chatted with him last night.
How's he doing?
I did that archaeological dig. Talk to everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Wait. Go on, Kyle. I think we have to. It's now 12:35. So we should go on to your next session. I think
so. So talk about you were there at a really intense time in the company, but you've gone on to do these amazing things, and you've kind of done it as this pair. Like, what did you learn from those early days at agency.com? What did you carry forward? What did you jettison? Just sort of talk about your path, like, how you got from, there to where you are today.
Yeah, it's so interesting that my experience, my time at agency.com, the entrepreneurial spirit and that kind of energy that you could do anything was so formative. And then going from that to a place like Ogilvy, which was all about process. Everything was process driven. So there was very little room to do something that was too crazy. I mean, it was good process and the output was always good. It was never terrible. It was always good. So the combination of those two things, entrepreneurial spirit, Wild West, heavy process, getting to RGA was so liberating to be able to combine the two in a way that felt right for what you wanted to do and being in that kind of environment. If I hadn't had either of those experiences, I probably would have fallen apart the minute I got to RGA, because it was very much like, you're a grown up, do your freaking job. If you need help, tell us. And that was it. That was about the amount of instruction that you got.
Yeah.
So I think that those two things, being able to carry forward into my RGA experience, and then just being able to meet more people along the way, had been I consider myself so fortunate to have had that combination of experiences, because it really sets you up. And at the same time, I was evolving from being a project manager to somebody who was more about client engagement and running larger programs, to then being able to look at all aspects of a business, operations, strategy, business development, all of these different things. And it was just a cumulative type of thing. But the starting point was agency.com, and that anything is possible. I'm so fortunate.
What was that transition like? So you go from agency where this anything's possible to that really structured thing. I mean, you think, structurally, right? So I assume, was it a relief, or was it like, holy crap, how do I deal with this? Like, what was that transition like?
So having a background in business, so coming out of business school, going to Blue Cross and Blue Shield, going to Oppenheimer, again, very regimented, very structured. That span of time at agency.com was like sowing your wild oats, like, you can do anything. And then coming back to it from a process standpoint was like, okay, so you lived here before, you had a brief stint over here, now you can pull those things together. But it felt so restrictive being that heavily tied down by process, that there was even that moment of like, there's got to be something different. And I don't know if I've ever really shared this at length with anybody, but when I was at Blue Cross and Blue Shield, I interviewed at RGA. So in 1995, I interviewed at RGA. A really nice guy named Charlie Scuba more or less said, you don't have any experience to be here. Go away, come back later when you have experience.
Wow.
So it was a full 10 years before I was able to go back and say, hey,
here I am.
I get to be here.
Yeah.
And even in that interview, I swear to God, I thought I shit the bed with that interview, because the man had a poker face, never let anything on, like, oh, you nailed it. He didn't laugh at any of my jokes, which is super unvalidating.
Sorry,
and then I got the job.
Nobody listens to you or your jokes. It wasn't just that guy.
That hasn't
ask my kids.
It's funny, we're talking about 20 years now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Time we left the agency until now, and the journeys, right?
25.
It's insane. So it's funny because I've had two kinds of jobs. Agencies that want me to bring them something like agency.com.
Yep.
Or agencies that are just as good as agency.com.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, in the one, they're like, can you just go do the web thing for us? That's what we need. Thanks. Yeah. And the other one, it's like, oh, you haven't done like massive data work yet. So, I mean, again, being on the same journey as Mark, I will reference the same two agencies. we went to Ogilvy. I mean, I was lucky enough. Mark brought me in as a freelancer, but
Well, wasn't there a bunch of agency guys who went there, right? It was you
yes.
guys, it was
Went there.
Megan,
Chris
Lady
Palmer.
Heather.
Yeah.
We had a
Bruce.
whole ton. But it
Bruce.
was not just the DNA,
Yeah.
right, of having those same people, but it was also Ogilvy was built on Ogilvy One, right? So like they had the one-to-one marketing chops, they had the CRM and the consulting chops, and for that they took the work we were doing at agency.com and made it even better. Hence, Digital Agency of the Year in 2005. Well, Mark and I.
Right.
And then I went on this sojourn and like went to a couple of other places that had no idea what the hell they were doing. And you struggle through that. You're the digital guy. You get one slide in a 50 slide deck in a pitch.
That's me now. That's me now. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you go to RGA and suddenly there's people there that are going to outrun you every day. And I'll always say RGA was the best job I ever had because me, Mark, Jay Berberick, like we had a lot of folks who did what we did at RGA. But by that time, the web went from websites to mobile, Web 2.0, mobile, social.
Right.
We were pushing into AI devices. I mean, the amount of tools we had to play with. And that's why the work got even better. And that's why RGA was Digital Agency of the Decade.
Yeah.
So like we were lucky enough to go with the winners and to do some really
But you took that spirit with you by the sound of things, right? You took the entrepreneurial, we can get this done, there has to be a way kind of thing with you wherever you went by the sound of things, which is what I've done. Mark, this is unfortunately for lots of people who are always betting against it. I'm now 7 years at Ogilvy, which is scary as hell, right? But I agree with you. The process thing just kills me to the point where how can I get it done? I just need to get this done. What do I do to get it done? Right?
Yeah.
Well, it was cool to hear Carla on here. You guys had an episode with Carla Hendra when the show started.
Yeah.
Hear where her head was at. It like gave me the whole foundation of why Mark and I and everybody else were so successful.
Yeah.
Like you had to have somebody at that high level who understood the importance of what this was all about.
What do you, for you, Troy? What was the thing you most learned from from those early days? What was the thing that you feel like has been consistent with you throughout all this?
The people. It's all about the staff.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a talent-based business, right? So if you have people who aren't going to stay late or who aren't going to push themselves, it's like you never had to tell any of our friends or any of our teammates, "Oh, this has got to be better," because they're going to kill themselves to make it the best you ever saw before they showed it to you. And that's why when we get together with each other, it's nothing but hugs. Wait, I'll tell you a great story. Check this out, Kyle. So we did 2 layoffs, right? We did the layoff that took us from 250 in New York at the end of 2001 down to, whatever. And then we did the final layoff where it took us from like 150 down to like 15 people, right?
20. It was
20 people, whatever it was.
Yeah, I remember that. Those of us who were there for that final layoff, right? So you got an email that said, "Please bring your laptop and your ID down to the 5th floor and speak to Karen Abraham." So we all got the email at the same time, right? And we stood up from our desks, and you remember what those workstations were like. We stood up, and you kind of looked over your shoulder, and you saw everybody else stood up. And we looked at each other, and we were so happy. Like, these were the people who we had been through hell with and we had done so much with. And we just started clapping and we gathered in the middle of the floor. We were hugging each other, kissing each other. We took our laptops, we laughed, we got on, we gave our stuff back, we went to a bar, but it was like we went through hell together. We invented something. We didn't just go to work every day. Like we actually invented something. And we loved each other for it.
Oh, that's huge.
Hey guys, quick hello to Pete. Hollister's on. I can't believe it. So there you go. Hey, Pete, come on, you Spurs, and then Michael. It's great to see him. So do you have any, Troy, you were telling us earlier, I don't know, Kyle, do you have any of those photos that we may be able to embarrass anybody with?
I don't have them ready to go. So
that's a shame.
I know. We'll have to do those on the next show.
Yeah, we're going to have to start the show with some pictures from those days. Apparently, Troy has been very good about collecting some of those photos for us. So, you guys you both leave, you join Ogilvy, I think is where you both went. Is that right? Or Mark, did you go to Ogilvy first and then Troy?
Yeah. So I left agency.com, went to Ogilvy. Troy came to Ogilvy after agency.com, went to RGA. Troy came to RGA. And then we went on divergent paths in terms of companies, but wound up living in LA together for a stretch of about 5 years.
Amazing.
Crazy.
I was out in LA broke, trying to find a way to live there for 4 months without using the stipend of moving my family. And I call Sparky and I'm like, I'm in a pinch. So he gives me the Cato Kalin back house. And I lived there for he furnished it for me and everything else. I lived there for 4 months,
Wow.
Amazing.
Great.
So do you have a Cato Kalin back house now, Troy, that we can come visit?
I just have a swamp in the back, but you're more than welcome to protect.
If you put a sleeping bag or a hammock out there, I'm sure we'll be fine, right?
Hey, I was going to throw one more thing out. The moment after, so the next job after was for me. So imagine that in 2002, the whole East Village, the whole New York City was nothing but broke.com people with no jobs, right? Me, Jackson Wang, Kevin Gutturl. I was going through a divorce. I was living in a little studio apartment. I had sold everything. I had no furniture. We set up shop with a long table and literally just started moving pixels. I had 3 small to business clients. We started our own web shop. But it was, Kyle, as what you said was, we just figured anything was possible after what we just did.
Yeah.
So this is going to work. Of course it'll work. You know,
you can solve it, right? You just put it in there and and off you go.
So today you must work with folks, because this is one thing that I try and do with the youngsters on my team is to instill some of that even today, if we can, right? Nothing is impossible. If you come across a hurdle, come and find me. We'll figure it out. Do you guys do the same thing in the places you're in?
Yeah. What's interesting is I don't necessarily have to be that active with some of that because the people that I'm working with, like the company built its own satellite and put it up into space and it has a ground communication component to it. It's like,
right.
Yeah, clearly you can do anything, but it's getting it to a place of relating it to a business outcome. I think has been where it's been. I think I've been helpful with that because it's one thing to be able to solve a problem from a technology standpoint, but finding how does that help from a business standpoint? What does that mean? What's the impact? That's been some of where time has been spent. But man, some of the smartest, brightest, most capable, confident without being arrogant people, that's been the pattern for me. That's the place that I'm drawn to, where it's not these enormous egos where you're working with people. You're like, you know what, if I have to talk to you one more time, I'm going to punch you in the face. We're just good people. We're super smart. We'll figure it out. Let's go.
That, you mentioned that business thing that I felt like one of the reasons agency.com was good at what we did, there was the curiosity and the talent and the drive was sort of the cauldron. But the one thing I thought we did really well was ask the question why a lot. Why do you need a website? What are you trying to accomplish? Like really what seemed at the time like ridiculously simple questions, which are actually the hard questions, right? Why do you want a website? What are you trying to accomplish? Is this thing you say you want actually what you want? Is it really important to you? So that to me feels like some of what you're talking about there.
Absolutely. And it's being able to ask a simple question that is very tough to answer because it may make them uncomfortable because the initial answer might be because everyone else has. No, that's not the reason to do it. There may be some other thing that is why you need that. Mm-hmm. But it's like, why does that matter? What is it you want to accomplish? And then helping to shape what the outcome should look like. Yeah.
What about you, Troy? Are you doing similar things?
I'm going through something similar right now. Working with virtual production with Chapeau Studios. It's like the thing that we had, it's hard enough at an agency to get everybody to go the same direction, right? You need to be clear. You need to be a coach and a rodeo clown and everything at the same time, right? But when the technology is actually moving beneath your feet, like to actually have people answer that question why when they possibly could innovate around it and come up with something you never even would have thought of. So like, again, this virtual production thing is changing on a daily basis. It's the first time I've ever had everything moving under my feet like this in probably since my early days at RGA, where you're like, oh man, I don't know how this might come out.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you guys just keep thinking about it and I'm sure you're going to surprise me. This is amazing.
Yeah, we toyed with offshore, remember? And one of our clients, I think it was, you know, if it was either Colgate or Sirius Satellite Radio, where we sort of thought, you know, we could do developers in India. This could be interesting. And it failed so miserably because on the PM side, I think it was Lainey. She was like, these guys aren't responding to me. I need to know now. I need to go, what's going on here, right? And it was 2 days later, somebody came back to her, right? So I used to you know, say that doesn't work in a fast-moving agency. So hats off to you, Troy, for trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Let me tell you, just one funny, serious story. So I remember doing a PMO work session with all our big project management group. We spent so much time together. And we brought somebody in and they're like, let's pick an example. How about Sirius? Let's talk about dependencies. What needs to happen first? And the young project manager raised their hand and said, we have to shoot satellites into space. And we all look, it's like, no, that's actually not
let's dig it.
Yes. Truthfully, that is what needs to be done. So
that is so good. There was we had a couple of people we brought in. I think Robin Cyrus, that was a guy we brought in, like a heavy hitter from Deloitte or Capgemini or something, who tried to process us, and we all looked at him like, "Dude, this isn't going to work." You know, this is not how.
When the leader of the group goes over to the client side, you know, when Maud the Impaler suddenly decides that, you know, she would rather be over on that side of the world, and we were already living in fear of that. And then you bring in Robin Cyrus. He is a perfect example of a person who didn't fit in that kind of environment. I think he knew it. And that's probably brought me and Spark even closer together as we try to do that and work around the crazy.
That's the thing about you know, having a strong culture is, you know, it's not just all fun all the time. It's like you fit in that culture or you don't. And if you don't, it's painful. And that was a lot of the growth we had to go through, was integrating as we would do acquisitions, you know, new cultures coming together and sort of what emerges out as the new one. And yeah, that's powerful stuff.
What?
Come on, Mark, do it for me.
Come on.
Brilliant. You do it.
Yeah, you do it. You
do it. Yeah.
Whereas no matter how much that we went up the corporate ladder or how big our responsibilities were, we always had one foot in the game. And unfortunately, he came out of a world where it was a lot of telling other people to go do stuff and didn't own a lot of things. And 20 years later, this is still a joke that we have between ourselves. You know,
you do it. That was so, yes, exactly. Perfectly done. Perfectly done.
Well, gentlemen, this has been absolutely flipping awesome. I mean, it's great to see you. I haven't, you know, seen either of you guys until, you know, this past week setting this up, and it's great to see you both. You look great. It sounds like you just kicking ass and taking names. Continue to do that. So
I'm gonna show up at your house, Cibort. I'm gonna bring some Yingling for you.
Anytime.
Yeah. When's your next big reunion, Ritesh?
Yeah, I know. You know, I'll tell you what. This all started with Kyle texting saying, "Hey, we should do a reunion." I'm like, "You do know there's a pandemic on, right?" And he said, "Well, we should do something." And then we started talking about things, and I said, "You know what? I can't remember it the way you do. That's not right." Tell him about our friend who sent us a nice long email about our memories.
So in our first or second show, Ritesh and I waxed on about whatever the memory was, and we gave dates and things like that. Well, Mitch Golden sends us a 4 or 5 page email with documentation stating why we were 4 years off in our memory. I saved all the emails. Here is the chain of events that happened. As they described, you switched these two elements together. You were 4 years off. We're like, okay, we still got it. We still got it.
I remember vividly when Gucci was a client of ours, and Marisha and Sean McDonald and Mitch were kind of that core team trying to help figure out things.
That's right.
And Mitch came in with his Princeton Tiger jacket. Like it was I don't know if it was for graduating, but it was this, my opinion, this horrible looking jacket that just seemed so like, why would anyone want to wear that? Marisha put it on, popped the collar, looked freaking amazing. Like she made this thing of garbage look so stylish. And it was like, how did that happen? How did you just do that?
Well, Mitch was very proud of the belt. Remember, he got that Gucci belt as a gift.
Yeah.
It was only brought out on special occasions.
You know we're going to get emails about it wasn't a belt, it was suspenders.
Yeah, we are going to get that email. That's right.
But I will say that my absolute favorite agency.com story, and hopefully if there are children within earshot, they'll be removed.
Yeah.
But Ritesh, it was shortly after you joined. And we were all supposed to go out for drinks. And Megan, who at the time was Megan Coleman, was saying like, okay, we're going to go. Ritesh, are you ready to go? And you said, I think I just need 2 minutes. And she said, is that a sparky 2 minutes or is it a real 2 minutes? And you're like, no, it's a real 2 minutes. And she went, all right, well, TikTok, motherfucker. And you'd only been there for like 2 weeks. And the words came out of her mouth. And she was like, I just told the VP of technology, TikTok, motherfucker.
Yeah.
I still use that as a point of reference for like, okay, let's go. Like,
Yeah.
That's great.
oh my God. And it didn't even faze you. It didn't fit. You were like, okay, I'll hurry up. And we were like, what
I'll be right there.
Yeah.
But that was it. We had
No pretense.
titles and hierarchies. There was no pretense about it. Like, you can't speak to me because it was like, okay, so. Judith says, thank you. That was great. Thanks, Judith, for joining us.
Jeff Becker, RGA. Ogilvy. The RGA.
Journey, man.
Yep.
Who is Jeff Becker? Troy.
Jeff
ran Chicago for RGA.
Yeah, and he was a project management director in New York first. We sat across the hallway from each other.
But it's so funny. Look at what all of us, right? We interviewed in the beginning. Our second show, I think it was, right? Was it? It was you and me. The second show. The third show was Deloitte. Scott Major.
Yep.
And he's running, multi-billion-dollar Deloitte Digital, right?
Yeah.
Richie Whalen's doing big stuff, right? You guys. The only people who haven't done anything is me and Kyle.
Yeah, I know. At some point, we'll get there. But the thing about us, Ritesh, we've always been the eye candy. I don't think we need talent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you just hear the looks.
Guy, well, to that point, it's 3 minutes to the hour, as Ritesh likes to say. He's got a job.
I have a job, unfortunately.
So we got to wrap things up here, but I just want to thank you both. This was
guys, it's so good to see you. Yeah, so good to see you. Thanks for doing this. You brought back so many great memories.
Great. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks.